Oh, I'm okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, welcome everybody who I cannot see. It's always interesting to do when you can't see somebody. I like to see faces, but Amy Abrams and I are going to walking into and through retirement. What we like to do, Amy lost her father-in-law, right? Amy, is that you just lost your father? Oh, your stepdad.
My stepfather.
You lost your stepfather, and so in the interest of her time to get up to Sacramento, we are going to change it up just a little bit. So we think what we're going to do is, for those that sent us some pre-prepared questions, which is fantastic, it really gets us to go in and know what is of interest. I'm going to quickly go into those questions, have Amy address a couple of those, and then we're going to get into the actual PowerPoint presentation. And we'll get into more depth into these questions as well. But I know everybody who answers questions ahead of time would like to have a little bit of insight. So the first one, are there people who can help me sort through all the stuff I own so I can move to a smaller place? And the answer is definitely a yes. That, believe it or not, there is a National Association of Senior Move Managers, NASMM. So we're going to get into that, but yes, there are. Are there clues other than health that it is time to downsize in retirement? I'm going to give Amy that one when I turn it over to her. Should I move if I ended up buying a three-floor condo when downsizing? Is it okay now, maybe not later? We'll get into that when we get into, again, the options of senior housing, and we'll talk about that. I've been downsizing for 5 years, but we still have tons of stuff. How can you set it up? Again, getting back to the first question, there are people that you can pay by the hour to help you sort through your stuff. And one of the biggest parts of this presentation is what to do about all of your stuff. Are there small things I can do now to help me age in place? There are many, many things today you can do now, and utilizing technology is a big part of that. We will talk about that. What to do with the family photos, digitize. And what I would also do, I'm going to address this because if you have, let's say you have more than one child, talk now to your children is who are going to get the originals and who are going to get the digitized. Because, believe it or not, I have been involved with it in my world of real estate where the family was squabbling and fighting and going to court over who got the original photos. Everybody got the digitized photos. So everybody got the same photo, but there was still a lawsuit over who got the original family photos and family albums. So don't wait, do it now. Definitely interest in downsizing act. What is the price range for retirement communities in San Diego? So the two questions I'm going to ask Amy to address right now, given her incredible background and expertise in this exact field. One, Amy, are there clues that it is time to downsize in retirement? Two, big question, and I know that's a broad stroke. What is the price range for retirement communities in San Diego?
Great. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, well, first, I just want to say thanks, everyone, for your understanding. I'm going to have to skip out a little bit early today. I will just quietly disappear. I won't announce my departure, but yes, I have to get on a plane up to Sacramento later today. So thanks for your patience with me. And I've also put a couple of links in the chat that I hope will be helpful to some resources that Ron just referred to. So to that question, and these are all such great questions. I'm really glad that you all had the opportunity to submit them. The question regarding clues that it's time to downsize, truthfully, most of those clues are not necessarily health related, but more functional related. Your health status is sort of a fact, but your functional status is really what matters, right? Having a diagnosis of arthritis, for example, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to downsize. But if your arthritis is such that it functionally affects your ability to get up and down a set of stairs, or get things out of storage when you need them, or get your rickety closet doors open, or, whatever the thing might be, that's the sign that it's time to consider downsizing. And when we talk about downsizing, I love Ron often uses the term rightsizing instead of downsizing. And I think that's a really important concept, because for a lot of people, it isn't just about less square footage, getting rid of stuff. That's all super important, but it's also just thinking about what layout, what neighborhood, what geographic location, what's going to actually meet not only my functional needs, but sort of how I want to live my life in retirement. Am I near people that it's important for me to be near? I would say social isolation, feelings of isolation, feelings of disconnect from family, from loved ones, from one's community. That would be a sign that it is time to consider relocating in some way, whether that's downsizing or not. Is there anything else in that question you were hoping I would cover, Ron?
I think that's, again, I comment from a perspective of socialization, which you would address. My number one thing, and Amy and I have been in thousands of homes over the years, and we can walk into a home and within 5 seconds tell if that person is safe and sane in that home by by their dress, by the refrigerator, by the deferred maintenance in the home. And that's certainly, maybe that's already pushing it too far where it's too late. And my big thing is all about socialization. We just moved a gentleman from Poway, no family, no children, nothing by himself. He moved just recently to where we're going to tour, Scripps Glen, and we just had lunch with him, and he's now the social butterfly of Scripps Glen, and he is thriving, and he's he's playing cards with the boys, and he's playing pickleball and all that kind of good stuff. So it's not for everybody, we get that, but it's all about socialization for me in that kind of manner.
Yeah, agreed.
And then price range.
Oh, sure. So actually, I was just about to put another link in the chat. Doing that right now. So I am directing you, you don't need to go there right now, but just for future reference purposes, there is one of the big providers former providers of long-term care insurance. Genworth does an annual cost of care survey. So you can actually find data by state and actually by region. So you can look specifically in the San Diego area to see data on what the varying levels of care cost. If you're looking to potentially relocate somewhere outside of San Diego, this might be a helpful resource, or to compare the cost of living in some type of a care community in another region with the cost of living here in San Diego County. It will surprise no one to know that we are, among the highest cost for residential long-term care in the country. Not the highest, but we're up there. But there is a lot of variation region-wide, as with the cost of housing. It's directly related to the cost of land and property in a particular area. This is housing like any other. There are wide ranges when it comes to the cost of care. So I'll tell you what Genworth tells us, what the data tells us, and then I'll tell you, what we actually see in real life. So independent living means that there is no licensed assistance with the activities of daily living being provided by the community. And so Genworth doesn't actually collect data on that because it isn't a licensed level of care. What Genworth does report out on is the cost of assisted living, and you can kind of draw some comparisons by looking at those numbers. So on average, the cost of a single one-room, one-bedroom assisted living apartment in the San Diego area, that's on average throughout this entire region, not just the county overall, but our kind of statistical area, that average cost is about $5,500 per month. Again, that's the data. What I will say is that in real life, that's usually about the cost of independent living here in San Diego County. If you are looking to be accessing assisted living, where they are providing regular check-ins, assistance with medication, for example, assistance with the activities of daily living, they are the community is preparing meals. You're generally looking at significantly more than that in San Diego County. I would say it's more in the 5,500 being the very low end to somewhere in the area of 7,000, 7,500. Pretty standard monthly fee for assisted living. If you are looking at memory care, of course, it costs much more. Memory care in San Diego County, the average is a little over $6,000 a month. But I will say, and there are actually several really good places where you can get memory care sort of around that average price range. But the variance is extreme when it comes to memory care. We have some communities in San Diego County. It is not unheard of for memory care to cost $10,000 a month, $12,000 a month, and more for a private room. If you're doing semi-private, meaning two people are sharing an apartment, of course, those costs go down. So cost is one very important consideration in choosing a care community, but it probably goes without saying, but it feels important to say it anyway. The cost is not an indicator of the quality of care. There are providers, for example, that only do memory care. It's all they do. And so they have, you can sort of think of it like economies of scale. They're able to do it really well and really efficiently at a slightly lower cost than a community that does independent living, assisted living, and oh, by the way, also has memory care. Not to say the quality is less or more at one or the other, but there are a wide range of those options. So we talked about the cost of home care a couple of months ago, or whenever that was in a past session, and you can see the cost of home care generally, if you're using 6 hours or so of care or less per day, staying home and using in-home care is actually cost effective compared to moving into assisted living. But beyond that, it actually usually costs much more to stay home.
I'm just gonna want to hit on one thing, is the independent versus assisted. If for those in the audience, if you're going out and interviewing different communities or talking to the marketing directors at communities, have the questions in advance. You're giving me the price for independent living. Yes, no. What is the price going to be if I need, activities of daily living? And Amy, the community scale, I mean, kind of how does that work, the scaling of needs?
It kind of depends on the community. So if they're licensed, and so there's two ways that communities that have both independent and assisted living can be licensed in one of two ways. Some of them have some apartments that are not licensed for care. Those are the independent living residences. And then another part of the community that is licensed for care. And those are the assisted living apartments. So an important question to ask is, if I come in as an independent resident and then need assisted living, am I going to have to move? That's not unusual, but many communities seeing that this is not ideal, not what people want to do, right? If you're making this decision, you'd like to just sort of move in and know you can stay there. Many communities are choosing to get all of their apartments licensed to be able to provide assisted living there, whether you need it or not. So that fact will affect what it costs, right? If there's going to be a move associated with that. If they can just sort of do it kind of cafeteria style and say, you know, if you're going to stay in that same apartment, and now we're going to add daily medication administration. Now we're going to add assistance with showering twice a week, for example, or now you're going to be getting all of your meals through the community. They're going to price that very differently than if you sort of move in and get all of those things right from the get-go. So it is very important when you're taking those tours that you understand what's the kind of baseline and then what is added on. It's not uncommon at all to see assisted living baseline cost somewhere around that $5,000 mark, but oh, do you also need care? In which case you're going to be paying another $2,000 a month or so for that care. So just really important. I see more communities moving away from that model, making it more of an all-inclusive. You know, we have these 3 levels of care, for example, and here's what they cost. They tell you that right up front. And then you get assessed, usually by a nurse before you move in, to sort of determine where you're at. And then you would be reassessed on an ongoing basis to make sure that you're sort of functionally at that same level.
So Amy's going to hang in there as my color analyst for the next half an hour or so. So Jolene, I think you're in charge of the slides. Let's move on to the next slide. Is that okay? So there we are, Ron and Amy. Thank you very much. Next month, Adam is going to come on. He's an estate planning attorney here in town. And so my question before we move off of this slide to prep you for next month is, obviously I can't see you, so don't raise your hands, but how many have had an update in their estate? How many, first of all, do you have an estate plan, trust, will, power of attorney, healthcare directives, all that is associated with it? And have you updated it since COVID started? So that's almost 3 years ago. Have you had any life-changing events, and be honest with yourself, since COVID, that you would want to reassess your estate plan? So I throw that out to you. Be honest with yourself and write that down. So you have some questions for Adam next month. Next slide. So right-sizing in retirement is a journey, and you can read this in terms of aging in place to right-sizing the senior living communities. That's what we're going to cover today. What to do with the stuff, family dynamics, financial considerations, housing options. This is really something that Amy and I used to do over 8 hours in a 2-week presentation. And we're going to give you, we're going to put it all into 50 minutes for you. And I'm always here to answer questions. I mean, when we were talking before we actually started recording, I do, and my team does, and my references do, will all come out and give you advice in person to somebody, whether it's you or a loved one, to try to navigate this. This is a journey that is stressful. Family dynamics come into play. And what we're trying to do is allow families to want to have Thanksgiving together forever and ever, as opposed to the family trauma that happens when someone passes away and they're trying to make decisions. So we hope we get something across today. Next slide. Okay, the Greenwald Realty team, initial consultation we just talked about. We're happy to come to your home. We are not contractors, but we know all these people. Amy and I have dealt with these people for 20 plus years. So we know who the players are that can come in and help you. One, the initial consultation is, how is your home safe for you to stay in? How can we make it safer? How do we prevent the number one thing that boo-boo on my fingers here? The fall, the hip, the broken hip. Are you climbing into that bathtub? Are you opening that window that's over the bathtub as you climb into a wet, tub situation? Are you getting on a ladder to get dishes? What are you doing that we can maybe help you not do by using, whether it's technology, a slight remodel of the house? How many of you have area rugs? How many of you, maybe we should try to think about getting rid of the area rug? So we will come in and assess it from a living standpoint. How many of you have a straight shot from your bed to the bathroom? How many, it's well lit? How many have automatic lights that come on at night, going a straight shot from your bathroom to from the bedroom to the bathroom? I know it sounds, but that's where things happen. 2 a.m, we're trying to stop all of those things. Home inspection, an idea of having a home inspected once every couple of years, just to prevent issues that can become bigger issues down the road. Not that you're selling the house, but just to minimize your cost of living in that home and keep it safe from mold. I mean, we've had 20+ inches of rain in the past year in San Diego. All I see on the roads right now are mold remediation trucks everywhere. Don't think your home does not have mold. I bet you it does. If we can capture that while it's a small problem and remediate it, it might help you stay in that home longer, because it does impact quite some people's health. Certified appraisals in terms of valuations for your wealth manager, for your CPA, things for your estate planning attorney. Financial information, we're going to talk a little bit about what Prop 19 has done, Proposition 19 has done, capital gains taxes, property taxes, and estate taxes. Evaluations of options, age in place, right sizing, or move to that senior community. So this is Jolene's caterpillar, we call it. Next slide. Tips to live to be safe. It's a lot going to do about the stuff and the decluttering. Amy, I'm going to have you've seen a lot of homes. Can you address a little bit of that while we have you?
Sure. I think when people think about clutter, we tend to think about the really extreme, things we've seen on hoarders. There's a lot of problematic clutter that actually isn't all that extreme. It's pretty normal, actually. If you've lived in a home for more than a couple of years, it accumulates, and often it accumulates without us having any real awareness of it. So I would always ask people, I would go into a home, it would be my first time seeing it. So I had a totally objective set of eyes and, nose and ears and all of that to perceive the environment. If you don't have a professional that can come in and do that, ask someone or just try to sort of wipe your slate clean. Walk into your home from wherever you park, come in the entrance and walk around the spaces in the way that you usually navigate the space, right? Many people have rooms or corners they never go in, and in which case maybe not a problem. But look for things, some very simple things in addition to, rugs and trip hazards. Falling is the number one thing to be thinking about when it comes to clutter. But also those barriers to getting to the bathroom in a hurry. If you were to develop some mild incontinence and had to be, jumping hurdles to get to your bathroom from the living room or the bedroom, this is a real safety hazard in addition to just an unpleasant situation. A lot of accidents happen because somebody was rushing to get around, obstacles that had appeared without their really being aware of them. This can be furniture. It's not always junk, right? It's just sort of the way you've ended up moving things into your flow of traffic. So clutter, I just encourage you to think about clutter in a broader way.
Here's an exercise, and we're not for this workshop, but after we're done, when we get off the video and we're done with it, just sit down in a chair somewhere in your home, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and take a tour of your home with your eyes closed. And just picture every room, bedroom, bathroom, the bedrooms, the living room, the stairs, the garage. Take a visual of all that and think about, what can I do to declutter that for a simpler life that's a healthier life and a safer life. It's a pretty cool exercise because I have about 300 Beanie Babies below me in a garage. So if anybody would like some, I cannot get Linda to let go of those. So here I'm, struggling. So that's
if I
next.
could just add, I just
Yeah.
want to say psychologically clutter is something to consider as well. There's the safety component, of course, which is primary and critically important, but clutter emotionally weighs on you too. So I do encourage you to just think about, it does feel better to offload the 300 Beanie Babies or, whatever the thing is that has somehow accumulated that keeps you thinking about it, that it can really take a weight off. Yeah.
The next slide. Amy, this is for you, hanging with a stranger.
Sure. So let's see, hanging with a stranger. So yeah, I'm actually in the midst of trying to talk with my own mother about this situation right now after having spent a career literally talking to people about this. Here we go. I'm doing it with my own mother. Her husband just passed away. She has a functional disability. She needs to have a shoulder replacement and needs some assistance. And she's otherwise pretty independent, but I really need to get her starting to think about future care needs. She's going to be having this surgery soon. She's going to need 24-hour assistance. What can I do to kind of ease her into that transition? I love to encourage people to get started with home care or having just friendly visitors. You can have a volunteer from a local senior center, whatever. There's so many resources for this, but kind of practice having strangers in your home. It's really helpful to the transition for someday when you do need more assistance, and not everyone will need it, but most of us will at some point for at least a short amount of time. Getting in a little bit of practice, having somebody else do the driving, having somebody else prepare a meal, and sort of seeing what that's like to let someone else be in control for a little bit. No one likes it. I won't sugarcoat it. Nobody wants it. Nobody likes it. But for a lot of people, that's going to be the key to being able to stay where you are, if that's what's important to you. That's going to be the key. That's going to be the difference, is being willing to have some outside assistance that you don't necessarily want. I just like to set expectations so people are realistic about what home care looks like. Professional caregivers are not in constant motion all day, every day. I think sometimes people think, why am I paying for this? They're just sitting there, right? Sometimes, first of all, caregivers, they're professionals, they're working, that is their work environment. They do actually need to take breaks, just like any other worker. But also sometimes what you need is company, is somebody to just be keeping an eye, while somebody is in the shower, for example. I don't necessarily need the help in the shower, but I do want someone sitting right outside the door in case I need to call for help. And then people think, well, we're paying this person to just sit there. It's the peace of mind and the safety that comes with having that additional support sometimes. Is it okay to have family members providing care versus an agency? Absolutely, depending upon what the needs are. I wouldn't discourage anyone from having friends, family, neighbors, members of your book club, your church, whoever it might be, provide assistance. But it is important to know sort of where that line gets crossed, right? As I'm talking with my mother right now about what she's going to need in preparation for this shoulder replacement surgery. Yes, her best friend can come, who's young and pretty spry, can come and provide assistance. But if my mom needs help in the shower washing her hair, should her friend be helping her with that? No, they're both going to end up with shoulder injuries, right? So just knowing what the level of care is, having a realistic picture of that, and just getting, getting accustomed to the idea of having someone in your space. It's uncomfortable, but people really can get used to it and really flourish with it.
And again, we're going to move to, in terms of actual move to the next slide in a second, but I just want to focus on this one more second in terms of aging in place. There's the tech, Apple Watches, Alexa, lights that coming on automatically, drawers that pull out by themselves. I mean, there are the technology units called universal design, and you can go on the websites of the very large home remodelers in San Diego County, Marical Construction, Jackson Home Remodeling. All the big home construction companies now have specialist design people for home aging in place remodeling. It's a certificate for a contractor. The technology is fabulous. And again, just the idea, we don't even call it the grab bar concept. They are designer grab bars today. So they're not that ugly metal look. They can be very becoming in one's home today. So don't be shy. I mean, they have workshops that you can attend. I'm not saying go out and do it all, but at least get an idea, just like visiting senior communities that we're going to talk about in a second. The idea of visiting a universal design studio here in San Diego as to what is possible for you, and actually given oh, we just lost everybody. Oh, what happened?
We can still see and hear you.
Can you see me? Because I lost the slide for a second.
Oh.
So just be aware of all of that it's out there. Wait, hold on. I don't know what launch meeting. Anyway, let's go. I don't see my slide, so I'm going to go. My technology just got. What slide are you on?
We're now on the event.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. So here we are, we're going to start on age restricted only. These are communities within San Diego County that you may be familiar with, that where you are buying a piece of real estate, you are buying your home. This is not a senior community living, but it's a 55 plus restricted community where you have to be 55 or older. You cannot bring in your 27-year-old son to live there with you or your 35-year-old son. Again, unless that person is your caregiver and you really have to read the CC&Rs. But to go through this, Ocean Hills, it's about a 1,500 home community up in the east part of Oceanside. They've got a 20,000 foot clubhouse. Whatever you enjoy, whatever you pleasure to do, you can do. They have a golf course. They've got, of course, pickleball courts now. So that's the big one. Auberge del Sur, Bernardo, I mean, the one that's been around since the 60s and 70s that you may be familiar with in Rancho Bernardo, Bernardo Oaks and Seven Oaks. That's a combination of both condominiums and single family detached homes. Again, you're just buying a home, living in there, just like you would anywhere else, like you live in your home today. But again, it's restricted in age as to who can live and reside in the home. Rancho Carlsbad is a community up along El Camino Real that are manufactured homes where you own the land. And those are beautiful. It's amazing how the interiors of those. Oceanside. And then there's 55 plus apartments spread throughout San Diego County. If you're going outside of San Diego County, 55pluses.com is a place to look at. Obviously, the desert, the east, the Hemet area, the desert area has Murrieta. They have a lot of these 55 plus communities where you have the golf course, the clubhouse, the games, they have the shuttle buses and things, and all of those avenues for enjoyment. So that's the age restricted only type living. Amy, anything you want to add to that?
Nope, that's pretty well covered. Yeah.
Okay, next slide. Are we on the Oakmont slide?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is an independent and assisted living communities, again, spread throughout San Diego County. And again, obviously you can read them all down here. These are ones that where they have independent and assisted living. They are monthly. You're going to pay monthly. You're paying for a monthly apartment. And as Amy talked about earlier, what are you going to pay will depend on the amenities and the features within each community where they're located, on the coast, inland, South Bay, North County, and how full they are. That's always a big factor. So Oakmont, Merrill Gardens, Belmont, Silvergate, all of these are month to month. Some of these may also have memory care associated with them. And we're going to talk about memory care in a second. So you just when you go and visit these, or we try to get as many tours as we can through San Diego State and have tours of these communities, understand the questions as Amy spoke about. What is your base price? Can I stay in my apartment through the rest of my life, or am I going to have to move? Am I going in an independent apartment and have to move to an assisted living? If you're going in as a couple and your spouse develops with Alzheimer's dementia, am I going to have to be separated? Or again, can I bring in care to stay in my home? Lots of questions to ask and really get an understanding of the meal plans, the food, the people that work there, the people that live there, so that your comfort level gets, you can get a comfort level with what you like to see. Amy, I'm going to throw it back to you on that one.
Yeah, actually, I don't have much to add there. I would just, I think the array of differences is something really worth exploring. See as many of these as you can. The layouts, the models, the sizes, there's a lot of variation, and there's just no substitute for being able to observe it directly. Right. What you see on their website or what you read about in their glossy brochures is nothing like what you're going to see when you're there.
I'll give you an example. Silvergate, which just built a beautiful new community in Rancho Bernardo. They've got some villa. Now these are monthly rent. They have some villas, and then they have the apartments. So their villas are probably a 2 to 3 year wait list if you want a villa at Silvergate, or if you want the corner top floor unit, that's somebody's living there now. So if you are really proactively thinking of moving into a senior community that's 100% full, then you may say, I will take this 1-bedroom unit now, because that will put you on the top of the list. And it is kind of, it's a chess game for these communities, and be honest with you. I think in terms of if you're already in the community, they're going to give you priority if that corner top floor view unit becomes available. If you are not in that community, then you're going to go on that wait list. So again, just a question to ask, if that is the community that you want and you want a specific unit, how can I best get to that? So that's Silvergate. And I'm trying to think of all of these others. Obviously, like anything else, there's a premium to the view location and the corner unit. If you want a 2-bedroom versus a 1-bedroom, maybe you have to go with the 1-bedroom first and wait till that 2-bedroom becomes available.
If I can just say anecdotally, almost everyone I've ever known or worked with who moved into a 2-bedroom apartment ended up downsizing again, realizing, and this can be really hard to kind of wrap your head around, and maybe it's just an experience people have to have coming from a big house into an apartment. They think I'll never be able to live in that small of a space. But in fact, life is a lot easier, right? when you aren't keeping up with roof repairs and preparing all your meals, or, whatever the thing might be. Many people they start out in a 2-bedroom and end up downsizing. So it is getting harder for that reason. It's getting harder and harder to find 2-bedrooms because they aren't building too many of them in new communities, because the buildings themselves see this trend.
I do want to bring up, I mentioned Silvergate. I do want to bring up Lantern Crest, which is on the very east end of Santee. That the owner of that is, it's not a corporate, it's a gentleman and very innovative in his thinking. They're expanding as we speak. And he has a plot of land to the right of this current community, where he's actually going to put up a 55+ for sale condo community. So he's going to have truly everything other than skilled nursing at the Lantern Crest. He has independent assisted memory care, and he's about to break ground, my understanding is, on actual condominiums that you will purchase to the right. So if you know where Lantern, if you just go, if you take the 52 and just go to the end, if you fall off the end of the 52, you're going to land into Lantern Crest.
Ron, it's
Yeah.
he's also an alumnus, an SDSU alumnus and former employee. So
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. So he's been very inventive. The place is just done really cool. We plan to try to get a tour out there later this summer. I think that would be a great one to go visit and just get his intake on why he does what he's doing and how he's doing it. They're very successful out there, and it's definitely not the most expensive community in town. It's a good one.
They've done something else that's really cool. They have integrated a Sharp healthcare clinic into the community, which is the first of that I've seen in San Diego County. It's really neat. They are doing some cool stuff there.
Okay, if anybody doesn't want to wait till the tour, and I can introduce you to the marketing director out there via email, and you can create and go do your tour on your own if you like, and ask for lunch. If you want to meet the chef, you always want to meet the chef at these communities, because they do come from the Hyatts and the Marriotts and the Sheratons of the world. So let's go to the only memory care slide. So like Amy spoke about, these are 100% devoted to memory care. And again, my personal journey is Silverado. I cannot speak more highly. I don't really have a personal knowledge of all of these, but Silverado, I have a very in-depth personal knowledge of the one in Escondido. And I, again, having dealt with my own personal family members with dementia, Alzheimer's, and obviously being in this space where I'm dealing with people with Alzheimer's and dementia, I cannot speak more highly of the level of caring care that this gentleman, who's part of my family, has received at 66 years of age, living at Silverado. I mean, it's really astounding. Amy, I know this is probably close to your home in terms of your history and being part of the Alzheimer's San Diego for years.
Yeah, I can say great things about most of these communities. There's nothing on this. I did review this list, and before this presentation, there's no community here where I would not place a family member of my own. But I can certainly speak to, in particular, the skill of the staff who work at active care. There are several active care communities, and the Stellar Care, which is in the Colwood area, not far from SDSU. Those in particular, but there are many other really terrific memory care communities countywide. Some of them are smaller, so there's sort of not so much on the radar, but there's Alpine View Lodge out in the East County. There's a lot of really terrific communities.
Next slide.
But again, that is a very expensive level of care. So
CCRC, these are what CCRC stands for is Continuing Care Retirement Community. And this is where you have all 4 levels of care on the campus: independent, assisted, memory, and skilled. These are what they call buy-ins, as opposed to, as we talked about before, sometimes there is an entry fee to some of those other communities that we mentioned previously, fairly low. I mean, it can be from $5,000, sometimes $30,000 for an entry fee to the month-to-month communities. Here, if you want to get into the V and you want to be on the penthouse, you're probably $1.5 million to $2 million entry fee, and then a month-to-month. Now, sometimes that month-to-month will be less than the apartment community, the month-to-month community, because they've obviously gotten a large check from you at the beginning of your stay in those communities. You have to go in as independent living. So for those that the argument is, if you wait too long and must go into assisted living community, you can never obtain the residence in one of these CCRC communities. La Costa Glen, I can speak specifically to La Costa Glen and Scripps Glen. If your initial deposit is, let's say, $1 million for an entry fee into those two communities, you do get, now your heirs, your beneficiaries upon your passing will be able to, right now their contract allows for 75% of your initial deposit to be returned to the estate upon your passing. I can't speak for the others. They are pretty substantial contracts that I do recommend your lawyer reviews because I'm not a lawyer and they are pretty substantial contracts. So, but we are going to take that tour of Scripps Glen. That will give you a sense of what all of these are about and like. Mount Miguel Covenant Village is a nonprofit. And so their fees are much lower, and their ability to have you stay there if for whatever reason your money doesn't outlast you, then there are ways to work with Mount Miguel Covenant because it is a non-profit. I want to move on, Amy. I want to get, because I know
just one quick comment on these. Again, just kind of a real life reality check on the CCRC model, whether it's a buy-in community or not. We use the term CCRC for any campus that has all of these multiple levels of care. But usually when we say CCRC, we are talking about this model where you are buying in. And I just want to acknowledge that it does happen. When you sign that contract, they agree to care for you until the end of your life, right? So that you can stay where you are. But there's also just the reality that you may need memory care at a time that their memory care is full. There isn't anything that they can do about that. They can't safely keep you where you are. They can't crowd you in, shove another person into an already, small room. And so they have to let people out of their contracts in order to allow them to get the care that they need. This does happen. For some reason, the builders of these communities, and maybe it's just sort of a collective state of denial that we're all in, they never make the memory care sections of these communities big enough. A lot more people develop dementia than I think any of us are really prepared to cope with psychologically or practically either. So that is a common reason that some of these communities have to let people out of their contracts because they have to seek memory care elsewhere. So ask those questions. What would happen?
Next slide. Board and care. These are homes probably right in your neighborhoods, usually single story homes where they've turned 3 bedrooms into 5 bedrooms, or it's a high level of care, maybe 8 to 10 people living in the community, 3 or 4 bedrooms. That's less. I mean, right now I have a client who's in a board and care. It's $3,500 a month. So it's, Amy, it's on the lower end of the price range.
Yeah, usually.
Okay. And because we have a lot to cover in the next 10 minutes. So let's keep going. Okay, what to do with the stuff. We talked about that at the beginning a little bit, and I want to come back to that. I cannot encourage you, if anybody wants to take anything away from this, please think about doing something now with all of your treasures, your memorabilia, your stuff. Again, like we said, close your eyes and take a tour of your home, and then have that family party this summer where the cousins, the uncles, the aunts, the nephews, the nieces, the children, the grandchildren all come in with the little sticky notes and put things that they would like to have from you. And think about giving, if you're not using it now, you haven't used it in 3 years, 2 years, whatever the case may be, and somebody wants it, give it to them. Get it out of the house. You will be enthralled with that because somebody actually wants some of your stuff. What we find too often is your children and grandchildren already have their stuff. My kids are, the early IKEA mode, and we don't want grandma's laliques and all that kind of stuff, or her fine china. I can't even give it to them if I wanted to, right? Because I got it in my house. So part of that, and then also from an estate planning standpoint, and I'm going to have Adam talk about this next month. It's huge. Where do family disputes derive from? The real estate is the real estate. If you're going to sell mom's home, dad's home, and everybody gets a third of the proceeds, that's pretty easy. But again, like going back to the lawsuit over original photos versus digitized photos. Be realistic with your siblings. Don't think you all get along. And that's why you want to have the open, honest dialogue with your parents, with your siblings, as to say, let's decide before we get into I'll use the word pissing match, if I may use that in this. Let's do it now. Let's get it over with now. And it's going to relieve so much stress on your folks, because they're going to worry about it until the day they pass away, is what am I creating for my children? And you're going to have a better relationship with your siblings if you can decide all this in an equitable, honest fashion now. So I just, you can see, I can't tell you how many phone calls I get, and I'm doing the real estate, is, Ron, go change the locks because we don't want my brother getting in the house because he's going to take my teddy bear that I used to beat him up with. And I want my teddy bear. I know you're thinking I'm crazy. I am not. I mean, I can see Amy shaking her head. I mean, am I right, Amy, on that?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I would say if anybody is sitting there listening to Ron right now and thinking, well, my kids get along really well, I do it anyway. My husband and I have been through, both of his parents died last year in 2 separate homes, 2 different cities. He and his brother are very close and get along really nicely, but the level of sort of emotional tension and conflict around some of these things. And honestly, myself and my sister-in-law, we would just shake our heads at, like, we're arguing over the pipe rack. Like, it just made no sense to me. But you never know what things are important to people, what people get attached to. And even the closest of people, this is such an emotional time. If you can do what you can now to discharge some of that tension, they're gonna get through the process of your death and clearing out your home and going through these things. It's a real gift to people to mitigate that tension for them ahead of time.
And again, if you have an estate planning attorney, make it a point to have a personal property section in your estate plan that is going to help alleviate a lot of issues down the road. So we're running short. I'm going to go next slide. Financial and legal, we have, just capital gains. Understand, if you sell your home, you bought it 40 years ago in Del Cerro for $40,000, and now you have a westerly ocean view and it's $2.5 million. You are going to sell that home and move into a senior community. You're most likely going to be subject to capital gains, federal and state taxes on that sale. The rules are, you have a $500,000, if you're husband and wife, a couple, you have a $500,000 exclusion on the original purchase, in terms of the gain. You also can add to the cost basis of what you purchased the home for, all the improvements you made over the course of the 40 years. Do I expect you all to have perfect records? Of course not. It's a pretty flexible number, but understand, if you are going to sell your home, let me get you an estimated net sheet from an escrow company. You take that estimated net sheet to your tax advisor, your accountant, your attorney, and go, what are my taxes going to be based on this analysis? And so you have an understanding before you actually put the home on the market. Cash flow, if you have a wealth manager or who you work, if you do it yourself, what do you spend per month? What's your intake? Do a cash flow analysis. Because if you're 85 years old right now, doing pretty good, the chances of you living to 100, pretty good actually, based on what we see. So I was just at a Westmont in Encinitas, shaking hands with a 101-year-old Battle of the Bulge vet. That was a true honor for me to shake his hand. No walker, no cane. Pretty cool guy. Prop 19. What we thought was going to be a great idea may not be such a great idea. If you are truly right sizing to another home, yes, you can take your basis of the home that you've lived in for 30, 40 years and transfer that to another home anywhere in the state of California. Again, there's some hybrid in terms of what you pay for the new house and things like that, but it's a pretty good program if you are truly selling your home that you're living in and moving to another home within the state of California that you are going to live in. Now, where it falls short for many people is your children. If you plan to, if your children are going to inherit your primary residence upon your passing, and they do not plan to live in that home, and they plan to make it a rental, Prop 19 is going to reassess those property taxes based on current fair market value at the time of their inheriting that property. The parent-child exclusion does not apply to rental properties, does not apply if your children inherit your primary residence, but they don't live in that home. So just be aware of that. Understand what's going to happen to those. Step up in basis. If you and your spouse, let's say again, if for whatever tragic reason you lost a spouse in the last couple of years, and was your house properly titled in the name of your trust, so that you got a full step up in basis where you could sell the home today based on your spouse's date of death valuation. So again, if you've owned the home 50 years and your spouse or a loved one that you were on a trust with passed away in the last year or two or three, the step up in basis as to the time of death, not from the original purchase price. And again, if you're planning to have your children inherit your home, again, make sure it's titled properly. So upon your passing, they inherit that home with what we call a full step up in basis. So your heirs, your beneficiaries, your trustee to your trust can sell that home with no capital gains, can sell pretty much all of your tangible assets, all of your real assets with no capital gains. Financial resources. I'm not totally familiar with the San Diego State Retirement Associations. If there was a long-term care policy in place, I'll let them speak to that at another time. Next. So I hope I was able to address the pre-questions. I'm here to answer any questions. Oh, chat. Let me see what we got here.